Hi and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast for another Authors Tuesday. Today I'm delighted to be joined by another great author, Linda Anderson Little. Joined me from America. So you're very welcome along to the show tonight. Thanks a lot for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great to see you. And would you mind maybe we start off the podcast today just to explain to the listeners a little bit about yourself, and the book you published sounds really good.
Thank you. Yes, I'm actually a Lutheran minister, and I'm serving a congregation north of Dallas in Richardson, Texas.
Okay.
And I've been here for about 4 years. And I've published another book in the fall of 2016. And this is that book. It's called Motherhood Calling, Experiencing God in Everyday Family Life. And this was a book of stories about my children and all the profound things that they said, you know, out of the mouths of babes, which I'm sure you're experiencing with your own son. They say the darndest things.
They do.
And sometimes they give us profound insights about life and about what's important and about what matters. And they help us to pause and to embrace what is really important. And I found that I was learning so much about myself and about spirituality and about what was important when I was staying home with children. And I found that nobody was really talking about how much spirituality we experience in the home with our children and how much they teach us about awe and wonder and spirituality and nature and creation and appreciating all of these profound, meaningful, purposeful gifts of life. And I think if there was one gift I hope that families started to experience, maybe beyond the stress of COVID, was that we began to appreciate having those gifts of that intense family time, that we have so much that we can learn from our children. So I started to write these stories and essays about what I was learning about spirituality and about the sacred experience of God from my kids and from the family. And those essays ended up being published in this book. And it ended up winning an award, I guess it's on this side, which was, it was called the Indie Book Awards, because it was an independent publisher, Henschel House, publishing house in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it won the 2017 Indie Book Award for Christian Nonfiction. And the publisher submitted it to that award system without me even knowing it. So that was kind of fun. And so that was in the fall of 2017, or 2016 it was published, and won the award in 2017. And during that time when I was writing those essays, I wrote a children's fable, and I never published it. And a member of my church published a children's book, and that inspired me. She inspired me. Her dog got lost in the neighborhood for 5 days, and a whole bunch of people that she didn't know came out and helped her find her dog. And they met in the church parking lot and said, well, I had a sighting here, and I'll look over on this street, and you look on that street. And she wrote a children's book about Twinkie in the village and all the people that came together to find this 4-pound Yorkie that got lost in the neighborhood. Wow. So she published the story. And she might be another great person to have on your podcast. Great, she dedicated all the profits to animal rescue organizations in our town, Richardson. So that was how she found the church. She came to the church after she found her dog to thank God for helping her find her dog, which was so important to her. And that was how we met. And she wrote this children's book. And I thought, well, I wrote a children's story and I never published it. But Darcy, who wrote her story and published it, inspired me to write down this children's fable that I wrote when the kids were small. And the book is about compassion. And I thought, at least in the United States, over the last couple of years or several years, we have lived in a very divisive, politically divisive culture. And we have the war going on in Ukraine, and we have climate change going on. And what we really need is for us to have more compassion and love and understanding for each other across race, culture, creed. Doesn't matter what our faith is. It's a non-sectarian book. It doesn't matter what your religion or if you have no religion, but just we need to have compassion for each other's suffering and how do we relieve one another's suffering? So the book coming out is called The Tears of Joy That Save the World. And that'll be coming out in the fall, in September. And it's a story about a mom and 3 kids that take a ride on the river of tears that the mom cries. And they're tears of joy and they're tears of compassion. And they're also tears that she cries when her children walk for the first time, or when she sees people building a home for the homeless and things like that. And so a creek forms in the backyard, the Creek of Tears. And when my kids were growing up, I was always a crier, and one of my children asked my husband, can you make mom stop crying?
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the impetus for me writing the fable. And so the kids and the mom go on this adventure on this Creek of Tears that form in the backyard. And the house that we used to live in St. Louis, Missouri, had a creek in the backyard where the kids played a lot of time playing. And so I wrote this fable that the creek was made of the mom's tears. So they go on this adventure, and this Creek of Tears and then becomes a river of tears and an ocean of tears. And the kids realize that the water of the tears become the solution to the problems that the people have that they encounter on their adventures. And they work with the people to help solve problems, whether it is hunger or a lack of water for farming, or habitat for animals, or food, or salt that's needed to preserve food and things like that. And so the children learn compassion, and we define what compassion is, that we experience another person's sadness and we want to do something about helping them. So that's what the book is about. And it seemed that this year, with all of the things going on in our country and in the world, and the level of divisiveness that we have, that this is a time for a message of compassion, that we're teaching it to our children, and then reminding ourselves in the process that no matter where we come from, whether we have a faith, no matter what our faith is, every religion and every ethical human being has the golden rule that we treat one another how we would like to be treated, and how other people need to be treated. And that is with love and compassion. And how do we teach that to our children? And how do we remind ourselves that we are one human family with one globe of resources? And how do we come together to treat each other with love and compassion?
Wow, that is lovely. That's a lovely message. Absolutely beautiful message. Yeah, because what a story even to read your kids. It's just there's so much heart in it. Thanks a lot for sharing that with everybody. That's brilliant. And I'm looking forward to be able to share your books as well. If you can send me the links as well, so I can put them on the show notes for people as well.
I would love that. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
I appreciate it so much.
No, thank you. And when did the journey begin for yourself with your writing? Have you always been a writer yourself, or where did it begin for yourself?
Well, as a pastor, I've been ordained for 33 years. And when you're a pastor, you naturally do a lot of writing.
Okay.
I write a sermon every week. You write church newsletters. But then I became interested in writing outside of the work-related writing that I do, because I actually did some writing in high school. I started to write poetry and things like that. But when I stayed home with my children is when I really started writing these reflective essays, because as I'm sure that you're finding with your own son, who you shared as 5, they're such an inspiration. They carry so much wisdom, and they obviously they're challenging, they're tiring, they're many things, but they are also such a source of wisdom when we can pause and reflect on what they're teaching us and what they're helping us reveal about ourselves. So I kept jotting down notes and things that my children, I have 3 children, that they would say. I'd write it on the back of envelopes that came in the mail, on the back of newsletters. And now, of course, with phones and apps, there's apps that like Toot Sweet and other things where you can record things that your kids say easily on your phone, and you can make videos much more easily with phone apps, which were not available when my kids were born in the 90s. But I really got inspired by my children when they were young. And that's what really inspired me to do a lot of writing. And I have continued to write since then. And I have a blog, soulstorywriter.net. And I've been keeping that blog for several years. And that has some of my essays from my books. It has sermons, it has liturgies. So I have a whole variety of things. And then it has several books on spirituality, where I have essays about spirituality in different books about spirituality. They're not books that I've written alone, but different pastors have contributed essays to those books. And those are publicized on the website as well. And so I've just been doing all that kind of reflective writing probably since the 90s. I've been doing it since the 90s, so probably for 30 years.
Great, yeah. Oh well, that's great. And your blog, I'd love to find out more about your blog if you'd like to share that as well for people to check out as well. It'd be great.
Yes, I would love to send you a link to that. It's soulstorywriter.net.
Great. And I just find it very interesting as well that the way the other author, your friend, who couldn't find her dog, and they got to the church that way, and then it inspired you. Isn't it incredible the way it can happen like that, where you get the inspiration to write your books?
Yes, that's right. And community is so important, because we do provide inspiration for one another. And Darcy didn't even know that her writing her own story provided the inspiration for me to write, because I'd had this story written probably 15 years ago, and it just sat there in my computer doing nothing. And when she published this book, and I thought, here I'm her pastor and I'm supposed to be inspiring her, but she is inspiring me. And so it's none of us have one single role. All of us are designed to shine our light, whatever light our Creator has put in us. And each of us are an inspiration to each other in different ways. And each of us can inspire one another. So our children can inspire us. You are inspiring us with your podcast, with music, and with highlighting other people. So you, Mark, are an inspiration. All of us can be an inspiration for one another. And sometimes we're an inspiration without even knowing it. So when I told this to Darcy, she was excited. She works in construction, and so she's not thinking that she's inspiring other people for writing, but she is, And so God can use us in many ways, even when we are not aware that the life-giving universe is using us as a source of inspiration for other people.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing. Like what you've written, it sounds really, really good. I'm looking forward to picking up a copy of it myself. So, as well as that, do you have a kind of a structure with your writing as well? Like, of when you were writing your books, to write a certain amount of words a day, or what way did you use, or what strategy would you have used yourself, Linda?
Usually what would happen is something would catch my attention and I would write down a nugget. And then when I had time, especially when my kids were small, it didn't work to have a structure for me to write every day, especially because my kids were close together. So I had them 2 years apart. So like I had a 1, 3 and a 5-year-old, or a 2, 4 and a 6-year-old. So it was very big. And so often what I would do is, after they would go to bed at night, then I would say, well, I have this nugget of an idea. And then I would go back. I'd have to go back in my memory and close my eyes and kind of remember that moment of inspiration. And I'd reimagine what it was and sit in my memory. And then sometimes I would try to get the feeling of that moment. And I make sure that my fingers are the right place on the keyboard. And sometimes I write with my eyes closed, so that I can turn off the critical mind and I can listen to the spiritual voice or the intuitive voice inside. And I haven't listened to very many people who write that way, but I also write my sermons that way, because it's very easy to criticize what I'm writing. Like, I'm not sure that's the right word, but then I disrupt the flow. And so It helps me sometimes to write with my eyes closed so I can listen to the flow of the intuitive voice without editing as I go. So I would try to reimagine where the moment of the inspiration where I wrote down that nugget with little kids around, and then I'd go back to that moment and just write what I felt and what was coming to me. And then I'd go back and edit it later. And then the other thing that I would do would be, we would go on vacation to a camp. And when the kids were in day camp, like they'd be in camp from 9 to 12, and then I would have free time, and I would spend the free time writing, and we would be there for a week. So then I would have blocks of time during vacation while the kids were in camp to work on my writing. So that was also very helpful. And then, so usually times at night were better for me because I'm more of a night owl. I know for other people, getting up early in the morning and writing was better for them, but blocks of time on vacation and then later at night were better for me.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I've had one or two people, authors on over the last 2 years who will do something similar, like with their eyes closed, but other people might listen to music as well, with no lyrics, but just the kind of classical, or just no words. But I find that I've done that myself, and I understand what you're saying, because you flow much better by listening to something, or shutting yourself off.
Yes, that's a very good idea. I have sometimes listened to that very spiritual meditative music, like 480 megahertz or something like that, the meditation music. Yeah. And that does help get you into a reflective state.
No, that's a great advice for listeners. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great.
Yes, I said I'm glad you mentioned the music.
Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah. And how did you find over the last 2 years with the COVID, with writing? Did you find your inspiration, did it affect you in any way, or how was that for yourself, Linda?
I found it a struggle sometimes because I'm an extrovert, and COVID was hard on extroverts because we get our connection and our energy from being with people. And so at the church, our building was closed here for 14 months. We were not meeting in person in the building. And so we became very good at doing services and all that stuff on video recording. But then we also did worship outside, and that really made a big difference. So once we started doing worship outside and people could watch it, pick it up in their car on Zoom, like we're doing now, or I did it on a microphone and they sat in lawn chairs and picked it up on the speaker. That was energizing. So then my writing after getting together in the outdoor service became easier because we were having more in-person interaction with masks and distancing. But then we were having live music, and the musician would come and play the outdoor electric piano, and we'd plug stuff in. And so then it became a little bit easier. And then we started having meetings on Zoom and Bible study on Zoom. So the first 6 months were especially difficult, but then once we figured out all of these other ways to connect, it became much easier for me as an extrovert, because at least then I started to feel more connected to people. And then I was sort of back to my other habits where I would get a nugget and then I would, close my eyes, and meditate, and then I would be back to connecting with that inspiration. But it is sort of dependent on having relationships with people and getting energized by community. That's a big part of it for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, no, because as you say, a lot of people through COVID started different stuff off, like with me doing the podcast, and you have to think of the good stuff that came out of a bad situation. I know God love anybody that was affected really bad, like with illness and losing jobs, but you got to look at the good side of where your creativity.
Yes, I think that is an important factor, especially in maintaining mental health. How do you, in the most difficult situations, look at what you have to be grateful for? And we have a saying in the church, God can squeeze a blessing out of any terrible situations. So when I can look around and say, what is the blessing that is being squeezed out of this situation? It may be hard for me to find, but I've got to look around. What is it that I have to be grateful for? And so I think that that's a very important point. And you know, just to have a home and loved ones that I'm living with. And my dad is 87 and he lives about 40 minutes from us. And we continue to get together, and we have several pictures of grilling outside, sitting 6 feet apart. We'd set the table outside, and we'd get up and we'd wear masks, and we'd separately go up and we'd serve ourselves food after my husband got the salmon and the potatoes or whatever it was off the grill.
Nice.
And then we'd sit 6 feet apart. The dog would be in the middle, and we would eat. And sometimes we're sweltering in the Dallas summer, and other times we're bundled up and we're cold and it's 40 degrees in the winter. But we did it every 2 weeks all through COVID. And I thought, I'm so grateful that we're figuring out a way to connect with my dad, who at the time was 85 and 86. He just had his 87th birthday. And we've got to find a way to stay connected. And we did. And that's what mattered. Sometimes we did it over a fire pit, and sometimes we were cooking marshmallows, and sometimes we were just dripping with sweat, but we got together.
Yeah, that's the important thing. Very good.
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
Let's say you enjoyed it. Say you loved that.
Yes, right. It may be uncomfortable. It may not be ideal, but we're having fellowship, and we're talking, we're sharing, we're laughing, we're telling jokes, we're celebrating that we're alive. We have good food to eat, and we're here and we're together. So that's what we have to be thankful for, and we are thankful for it.
Yeah, well said, Linda. No, thanks very much for that. And as well as that, do you have any favorite books you like to read yourself that kind of inspired you in your writing, Linda?
Yes, I do love to read, and I love Anne Lamott,
Okay.
who is an American writer, and she is she's a person of faith, but she also just tells it like it is, you know. Her name is Anne Lamott, and there's another writer, Nadia Bolz-Weber. She's also another writer that just sort of, I like writers who can integrate faith, but also just tell the truth, tell it like it is. And I also like reading novels and mystery writers. I've just been reading over the summer some Janet Ivanovich. It's just fun to get into a story and read different writers, how they use language and how they use words.
Yeah.
So there's lots of, and then there's of course stories that I've read with my kids. We all went through the whole Harry Potter series, and all of those things provided great joy for our family. So, you know, there's all kind of genres of reading that I love.
Great stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, that's great. That's a great list. A really good list. Brilliant. Thanks for that.
There's plenty more, but yes.
Yeah, great stuff. And as well as that, where can people get your books, Linda? Are they available on Amazon, and do you have them in bookshops as well? Where in Dallas or?
Yeah, this book is on Amazon, Motherhood Calling, and it's also at Henschel House. Henschel House, I think it's .com. And that's the publishing house. And the children's book, I think, will be out in September. So this one is not available yet. So that will be on my website, and it will also be available at Henschel House, and it will also be out on Amazon when it comes available in September.
Great stuff. Yeah, that's brilliant. Best of luck with it. Yeah, so probably the easiest thing is to send me your website so people will be able to find your books that way. Is probably the easiest, is it?
Yes. And also I'll be promoting the Tears of Joy on Facebook. So maybe when it comes out, we can link that to your,
perfect.
website too.
Yeah. No, that's great. And what's next for yourself, Linda? Have you any other stuff going on? Any other books in the making?
You know, that's a great question. I have several essays in books published by a spirituality house near here, the Retreat House. And we just had a book come out called House of Healing. All of them are called House of something, House of Courage, House of Light, House of Healing. So there's 15 of those books. And so we just had one come out. And so there'll be a second book of those essays coming out in the second half of this year in December. So I'll have a couple of essays coming out in that book. I'm not sure what the title of that book is yet. But in terms of another book, I'll have to think about that, if it'll be another book of essays or another children's book. That is yet to be revealed to me. I'll have to get quiet and think about that and see what the Spirit reveals. Maybe you have a suggestion for me, or maybe your listeners have something that they would like a children's fable or a book of essays to be about.
Yeah. No, whatever it is, I'm looking forward to reading it, because it sounds really, really great what you're putting out there. So thanks a lot for sharing all this with us, Linda. It sounds amazing.
Well, I appreciate you having me on your program, Mark. It's a great combination of stories and music, and there couldn't be anything better to inspire us. So thank you so much for your time and for having me.
No, thank you, Linda, so much. And as well as that, I was going to ask you, just something you mentioned there, healing. There's a book on healing you're bringing out, is it? Would you mind just talking a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm a certified spiritual director. I did an extra certificate of training that I received in 2018 in spiritual direction, which means I can meet with people who are seeking a deeper sense of spirituality or relationship with God. So I'm an affiliate spiritual director at the Retreat House, which is just here in Richardson. And there are several spiritual directors affiliated with the Retreat House from all different faiths and denominations. It's not just Christian, but other faiths as well. And all of them can be contributive writers to these books. And the most recent publication is House of Healing. And so all of the spiritual directors have a chance to write essays about how they have experienced healing, their experiences of healing, and how they recommend healing, or if they have a poem about healing, how they have essays of healing. And I myself am a breast cancer survivor. And some of those essays I've added to this book. And because I had breast cancer when my kids were in 3rd, 5th, and 7th grades. And so in the book House of Healing, I have a psalm of lament when I went through a dark night of the soul and felt so abandoned and lost and alone. And then I have a psalm of praise where I experienced renewal and a sense of God's light and healing and presence. And so those are the contributions that I put in the House of Healing and the book. And then other contributors and writers have poetry and other essays and other experiences of how they have experienced healing. And I have a copy of the book here, but I'll have to stand up to get it if you'd like me to get it.
That's fine. Yeah, that's grand. Yeah, if you're happy to do that, Linda, that's great. Thank you.
So this is House of Healing.
Okay.
I got to make sure I get on the right side of the camera here.
Yeah, no, I have a good, I can see that perfectly now, Linda. Yeah.
So this is put out by the Retreat House, and I can send you a link for that.
Brilliant. Yeah, please. Yeah.
And every book cover looks similar to this, and these are also on my website. And this is another one that came out recently called House of Comfort.
Wow. Yeah.
And so there's 15 of these that have come out, and I've got essays in every one. There's House of Light, House of Remembrance, House of Hope, House of Joy, House of Laughter, House of Play. So, and there's all different writers that contribute to them. And that's what's really fun, because you get all these different spiritual leaders' perspectives on all different kinds of experiences and topics. And there's poetry, there's essays, and there's different kinds of writing. So it's not just one type of writing.
Yeah, because I find it fascinating, like, because a lot of people wouldn't know about this, like, because I've only recently found out about healing, spiritual healing, and all that due to a personal thing that I was dealing with a while ago. But no, that's really, really, really good for people to check out. So that's great. Because it sounds to me it's kind of like a writers group per se, really, is it? Like, where
Yes.
you are all putting together the stories, which is great.
Yes, yes, it is. And it's a
Mm.
wonderful opportunity for people who have not been writers before
Mm.
to be published for the first time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for people who are new to writing and to publishing, it gives them a chance to have something published, and that's really special for people.
Great stuff. Yeah, great stuff. Because we're involved. I'm involved in a writers group myself. That a guy in Dublin, he set it up over the last few years, and during COVID, like it was a worldwide thing. Everybody, like lot of people from all over the world were joining into the writers group, which is great. You write off a prompt every week, and you have a half an hour to put something together. So it's unbelievable the stories that come out of it. It's great,
Isn't it wonderful? And I
Yeah.
think writing stories, whether you're published or not, is a beautiful practice of self-reflection, self-insight, self-knowing, self-revelation. Because sometimes I don't know what I think about something until I start writing about it. And then when I start writing about it, I get new insights and new wisdom and new understanding about what's going on inside my own heart that I was not a part of my conscious mind. So writing is such a beautiful tool to access our own soul.
Mm. Oh, no, it's great. So what a lovely way to finish off. I really, really appreciate you coming on, Linda. It's been great having you on, and wish you all the success going forward with your writing. Would you mind if I ask you one last thing, not to put you on the spot, but just for people who are listening, if you could give a sentence just to keep people motivated in their writing, what would you say to them?
I would say write your soul. Write your soul, because there are inner depths in your own heart, in your own soul, in your own being that are there that you don't even know. So the conscious mind only has access to what we've allowed in. And when we start writing, things are revealed that the conscious mind doesn't have access to yet. So writing is a tool that allows parts of yourself to bubble up that have not been revealed yet. So have the courage. Writing is an act of courage. It's an act of healing. It's an act of self-revelation. So writers are courageous people. They're curious people, and they're people who are wise and who have the courage to grow and evolve into the fullness of the depth of who they are. And that is such a beautiful thing. And that's why writers are such delightful souls, because they're leaning in to their evolving self. And if there's one thing that the James Webb images coming from the telescope, isn't that the name of the telescope? All those images that have just been revealed, right? Is that the evolution of the universe is such a vast and glorious and immense space, and we are a part of that. I mean, we are made of the stardust and the evolution of this vast universe, and part of that is inside of us, and we evolve as with this whole immense universe. And so have the curiosity and the desire to explore both the hidden depths within ourselves as we get to know the immensity of the depths beyond ourselves. And writers can explore both those inner depths and those outer depths beyond us, which takes so much beautiful courage. So explore the depths of your own soul as you articulate also the beauty beyond the depths of our universe.
Wow, that's lovely. Thanks so much, Linda. That's amazing advice. Thanks so much. Lovely. So it's been absolutely brilliant having you on, Linda. Linda Anderson Little, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for listening to Mark's motivational podcast for another great Authors Tuesday with Linda Anderson Little. I'm going to share all your books, the links to your books and your website on the show notes. So once again, best of luck. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for joining me. And I just also at the last minute want to really plug this beautiful artist who did these
lovely,
illustrations.
The
Her name is
illustrations are
Karen
amazing.
Hilmes. Karen Hilmes Studio. .com. And I hope that you will also explore her art. She's a beautiful artist as well. So thank you so much, Mark. What a joy to be with you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Take care. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Bye.